Hi, hello, it's Tommy Flanagan from Faultline here. I'm at IBC 2025 in the Friend MTS balcony suite, where we've just wrapped up a really interesting panel featuring obviously Friend MTS, BN Media, the Sports Right Owners Coalition and Interpol, though we're not allowed to talk about Interpol. And I'm joined by two executives from Friend MTS. I'll get you guys to quickly introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Nick Forman. I'm the VP of Marketing at Friend MTS.
And I'm Robin Boldon, the Head of Product.
Awesome, thanks guys. Alright, due to some technical issues, we're switching from the camera to the phone, and then hopefully we can seamlessly stitch these together. So, I was just about to summarise the panel, a few really interesting points from the panel, like something that just kind of blew my mind for a bit of context into the whole piracy world, is that it's third in revenue terms behind drug smuggling and people trafficking, right? Which is pretty mind-blowing. How long have you known about that? Why didn't you tell me that? Yeah.
Well, honestly, that sort of data comes from a variety of sources. Obviously, some of them are our own. Obviously, you saw Dave on the panel, who's head of intelligence, so he brings a lot of that. He's extremely experienced in that field. He's worked for years and years alongside Oracle, and has a unique picture into that. We're extremely pleased to have him, and launching our intelligence services, which is one of the things we're launching with the show here. But he's worked for years very closely with exactly the people we have. And those guys actually, the amount of data that those guys can collect is incredible. You know, they people like Apple, for example, have memberships, that encompass many of the biggest vendors, biggest broadcasters. And one of the things that Apple are very good at is actually connecting us together. And yeah, it's terrifying, it's quite stunning. And it just goes to show that there's a good reason we do what we do.
Yeah, and I had to laugh at one point. The famous analogy of the car was used. You wouldn't steal a car. Why would you steal a movie? And actually, I remember as a child seeing that advert in the movies or watching that at home, probably on VHS tapes back then, and however many decades later, still being used.
Yeah, it is.
But that message clearly isn't working. So, but what else
well, it's true. I mean, I think education is a massive part of this, because nobody knows those sort of things that we today, just been talking about and that blew your mind. I think the majority of people aren't aware. They're not aware, certainly the size, the scale, and the scope of it, but they're not aware of those links to organised crime. They're not aware of how that funds other horrible things. Genuinely, obviously, we all know people who are audiences for pirate streams, particularly around sports. And I like conversations with people. I don't think, well, why do you? Because exactly right. These people absolutely wouldn't go out to steal something else, and this is that. There's no two ways about it. But I think there's always that victimless crime sort of mentality, and I think it actually goes along with the consumption of media in a way that it absolutely doesn't anywhere else. I know. There's never that sort of association between doing something wrong. Look, we're all aware of the platform proliferation and the amount of subscriptions that you need to watch the content. You're trying to get that, and that's a conversation that probably has to be had at some point. But still, you could say that about BMW. You say, well, I actually quite like a really nice car, but I can't afford it. And so I won't.
Yeah.
And the logical endpoint of that for me is also something I think people don't consider, and that is that, and I actually asked some friends this, okay, so if you're not paying the legitimate provider for this content, who do you think is? Because the content you're watching has to be produced. It costs money to license or to create. So somebody has to pay the people for that. So you're not doing it. Who's going to do it? You're relying on other people, on the goodness of other people, and that's a conversation again it's an education piece, saying, well, who is that? If it's not you, who is it? Who do you think so?
Yeah, and on the education subject, we speak incessantly about the collaborative approach that's required. That's another thing that's a bit of a broken record in the anti-piracy fight. It has to be collaborative.
Yes.
So who is not putting their vote in the value chain? So primarily the content providers, the rights holders. Is it the legislators who need to step on and do more?
I mean, I think we'll let you come in on that, but just very quickly, I think I wouldn't call anybody out, because I think everybody is conscious of it, and increasingly so. That's the thing. I mean, we're talking about it more, and you guys are talking about it more. As an industry, we are doing that. Yeah, it might be tired, it might be slightly overused message, but it's absolutely true. we do all have to get together. We all have to play together.
I think it's like you're bringing that message to a different audience. Not everybody understands the esoteric elements of the data. Yes, if you're an expert in that field, you might be more familiar with it. But it's policymakers, it's executives and other organisations, not only within the entertainment, within technology, telcos, within the broader technology sphere as well. And it's how you can translate that information into something that's meaningful for them. And that might be a good example we've talked about on the panel is hosting providers that fly under a flag of convenience in one location, but actually the content is served from a different jurisdiction. Understanding that and being able to convey that clearly potentially helps policymakers and legislators to be able to enact something because they can see that it's on their patch as opposed to somewhere else.
Okay.
And legislation is a point that Maruna is very passionate about, specifically on as are we. But legislation works. It can have an impact, but it takes a time. It's a slow process. Whether we're talking about piracy or whether it's any law that's going to happen. But I'll just go back to what I said previously that it's becoming more talked about. It's becoming more visible. People are aware of the increasing size of the problem. And that goes for legislators as well. We know that obviously there are different parts of the world that are more advanced in those regulatory or legislative processes. We're just seeing in the US. FATCA's just been discussed, and beard, I think, is the other one. In a way that even 3 years ago you wouldn't really have visited them and actually having that conversation.
Yeah. Okay. So what you're saying is you want more people like me to highlight companies, organisations that aren't doing enough and throw a few names under the bus. I would gladly accept that.
Well, I couldn't comment on that, Tommy, but I think you might be the guy for the job.
So there was a broadcaster on the panel.
Yes.
With Being, a customer of yours. And one interesting point that they made when they were talking about the relationship between piracy and cybersecurity and the kind of backlash that pirates will engage in with DDoS attacks once they found out that they've been rumbled, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that can apply to whether that's the stream being completely blocked or the stream's degradation as well, which they use two methods. So yeah, just an opportunity to tell us a bit more about your work with MTS, between MTS and Being. I know obviously Being works with quite a range of anti-piracy vendors, so specifically what are you guys involved with? Because that wasn't really spoken about on the panel.
Yeah, I think there are some specifics that we won't talk about, but I think more generally, what's really important is to understand how you help organisations like Being with their overall security hygiene with their platforms, how you help them identify where pirates are attacking the different distribution methods, and also showing the efficacy of the monitoring and enforcement activity and blocking work to ensure that you're mitigating those attacks.
Yeah, and on the cyber security front, we've all got to be smarter. Not just for NHS, not just people who and Being's anti-piracy departments. We've all got to be smarter. We've seen ransomware attacks on massive US broadcasters in the last few years, which they may well be a reaction to this sort of thing. They may not. It might just be people looking to make a few quid, and quite a few things in that case, in specific cases. So yeah, I mean, you've just got to be aware the world is a dangerous place. The media space, particularly because of the way we share information these days, the way that we broadcast our material, it's ripe for piracy, but it's ripe for any other sort of nefarious digital activities as well. And yeah, we just be more conscious of it.
Great. Obviously, I don't want these videos or Faultline in general to be a vehicle for vendor pitches, but I will allow you to get your a few seconds of kind of summarising what you are highlighting at the show and the kind of conversations you're having with people coming to your private little balcony suite up there.
Well, happily for you, what we're launching actually ties very much into the panel because it's a connected story. So our big launch, really, the show is the investigations services that we're now running under Dave's team. It basically, the process. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but obviously there are varying degrees of enforcement with varying degrees of success against pirates. For example, enforcement notices that get sent automatically. Those are a critical part of any sort of evidence gathering chain, and they have to be done. But notice sending in itself isn't the highest success rate, and pirates will ignore it. They tend to go to the service itself, or where an email address that's associated with that. Getting just an email for that, probably I don't even see it. What the investigations team allows us to do is actually to take that further and to actually get to the people and the organisations behind those services. And so it's very different between getting an email into an unmonitored inbox and getting somebody knocking on your door with a cease and desist letter addressed personally to you. And what our investigations team are brilliant at is taking a technical and operating approach to actually uncovering exactly that. Throat to choke, if you like, just the actual source of the problem. And we can do that at various levels. So we can do the shorter investigations that result in like a cease and desist letter, or longer term investigations if an organisation wanted to pursue that to a legal case or a civil case against particularly large private organisations.
Awesome. Right. Thanks for your time, chaps.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the show.
Good to see you. Yes. Cheers.